The 911 dispatcher's voice crackled over Margaret Henderson's phone as she stood shaking on my front porch, her expensive heels digging into the welcome mat. She screamed into the receiver with a pitch sharp enough to pierce eardrums, insisting that I had assaulted her and that she had uncovered proof of illegal activity inside my house. What she deliberately left out while speaking to the overwhelmed dispatcher was that she had just forced open my lock safe and taken highly classified FBI files from an ongoing federal case. I suppose I should step back and explain how things reached this point. My name is James Mitchell, and 3 months earlier, I had relocated to the outskirts of Willow Creek, a quiet, small town ruled by an HOA so rigid that they once issued a fine to a homeowner for leaving garbage cans visible from the street 5 minutes beyond the allowed time. The ranch I bought was positioned right on the border of their authority, but that was evidently close enough for them to claim jurisdiction over me. From the moment I arrived, neighbors gossiped about the enigmatic newcomer who worked irregular hours and seldom showed up at neighborhood gatherings. I could sense their stares every time I passed through the community gate, particularly the intense gaze of Margaret Henderson, better known to everyone as Karen. She held the position of HOA president with the fervor typically seen in fervent religious campaigns or extreme eating competitions. Karen was about 5'4" tall, always dressed in her signature outfit of crisp khakis and soft pastel cardigans, topped with immaculately styled blonde hair that stayed perfectly in place, no matter how hard the wind blew. She carried a clipboard wherever she went, and had committed every HOA rule to memory, able to rattle them off quicker than most people could recite the alphabet. Her greatest pleasure appeared to be inventing infractions that didn't actually exist. Our first encounter happened less than 72 hours after I moved in, when she showed up at my door with her clipboard and a forced smile stretched across her face. In an overly sweet tone, she told me that my moving truck had remained in my driveway 6 minutes past the HOA's limit for commercial vehicles. When I noted that the truck had already left, she merely jotted something down on her clipboard and warned that she would be keeping an eye on things. And keep an eye she did. I soon began spotting her silver SUV driving slowly past my property at odd hours. She would decelerate near my driveway, occasionally stopping altogether to snap pictures with her phone. One time, I caught her pressing her face against my workshop windows while I was inside performing routine equipment maintenance. When I swung open the door to challenge her, she insisted she was merely checking my property line for possible fence issues. Matters worsened when she started tailing me whenever I went into town. I'd notice her at the hardware store, hiding behind racks of paint cans. She'd materialize at the feed store, feigning interest in chicken wire while spying on me as I loaded supplies. Even the owner of the local coffee shop told me she had been inquiring about my buying patterns and asking if I appeared suspicious in any way. I stuck firmly to my role as an ordinary rancher, never providing her with anything substantial to fuel her suspicions. Yet Karen's fixation only intensified. She began mailing me citations for ever more ridiculous violations. My mailbox supposedly stood 2 inches too high. The shade of my workshop door fell outside the approved earth tone range. Tire marks from my truck on my own gravel driveway were deemed unacceptable landscaping. Then arrived the afternoon that altered everything. I had traveled to the city for a standard debrief with my handler, an appointment that kept me away for several hours. Upon my return, I immediately sensed something was wrong. My property gate was slightly open, even though I clearly recalled latching it shut. Fresh footprints trailed from the gate straight to my workshop, where the door displayed obvious signs of forced entry. Inside, my deepest concerns became reality. The concealed panel I had built to hide the safe dangled loosely, its wooden edges splintered from where it had been violently pried open. The safe, a top-tier security unit meant to resist any casual burglar, was gaping wide. Its advanced lock had been defeated with some sort of specialized electronic tool, and everything inside had vanished. A chill ran through me as I grasped the gravity of the theft. 3 flash drives holding surveillance video of primary targets. Extensive records of money trails connecting several local business leaders to an area crime network. photographs and audio files collected during 18 months of meticulous undercover operations. All of it was intended to dismantle a ring responsible for distributing illegal firearms and narcotics throughout the region. The hidden security camera in the workshop corner revealed the full sequence. Karen was cutting her way onto my land with bolt cutters. She rummaged through the space for 20 minutes until locating the secret panel. Then, displaying unexpected expertise for a woman who often complained that technology baffled her, she deployed what looked like an illicit safe-cracking gadget to breach the contents. I observed her expression shift from triumphant glee to puzzled alarm as she scanned the files. Even someone as self-absorbed as Karen couldn't miss the official FBI headings and confidential stamps. Yet rather than promptly returning the materials or alerting proper authorities about what she had found, she crammed everything into her large purse and hurried away. That sequence of events led directly to the current scene. Karen on my porch, hysterically yelling into her phone about the threat posed by the criminal next door. Evidently, after getting home and examining the stolen items more thoroughly, she concluded that her smartest move was to dial 911 and pretend she had been conducting a legitimate probe into odd behavior when I supposedly assaulted her. I opened my front door right as she was inventing details of non-existent injuries for the dispatcher. Her eyes widened in terror upon seeing me calm, composed, and clearly unharmed, proof that no attack had occurred. She stumbled backward, almost falling off the porch in her high heels. Saying nothing, I raised my phone and hit play on the workshop security recording. All color left her face as she viewed herself committing several serious crimes in crisp high-definition footage. Her voice wavered while she struggled to stick to her false narrative. Even as the dispatcher began posing sharper, more doubtful questions about the supposed sequence of events, sirens soon wailed in the distance. However, instead of the town police cars Karen anticipated, a fleet of black SUVs bearing government plates sped up my driveway. FBI agents in full tactical gear emerged, swiftly taking control of the area. Karen's mouth gapped open and shut silently, like a stranded fish, as the agents formed a tight ring around her, weapons readied but lowered, projecting unmistakable federal power. The lead agent, a woman with iron gray hair tied in a tight bun, advanced toward Karen with deliberate strides that radiated controlled outrage. Special Agent Patricia Chan identified herself and calmly informed Karen that she was now entangled in an active federal investigation. The materials Karen had stolen constituted critical evidence in a multi-state racketeering case that had required years of meticulous effort to assemble. Karen attempted to explain, her words spilling out in a frantic, overlapping torrent. She claimed she had only been trying to safeguard the neighborhood. She repeated that the rancher seemed highly suspicious, always arriving and departing at strange hours. As HOA president, she insisted, she bore a duty to probe any possible dangers to their community. Surely the agents could appreciate her perspective. Special Agent Chan's expression stayed icy and unmoved as she listed the charges: breaking and entering, theft of federal property, obstruction of justice, and tampering with evidence, all grave federal offenses. Each one carried substantial prison time, and in one reckless afternoon, Karen had accumulated every single one. The agent's voice held the quiet authority of someone whose long, painstaking work had nearly been ruined by unchecked suburban privilege. Soon, other HOA board members began pulling up, attracted by the unusual sight of federal vehicles and armed agents overwhelming the typically serene street. They stood in shocked silence as agents thoroughly searched Karen's SUV, locating her purse with the stolen documents still tucked inside. Her laptop, phone, and the safe-cracking device she had carelessly left in the vehicle were all confiscated as evidence. As news rippled through the neighborhood, the true situation came into sharp focus. The enigmatic rancher everyone had whispered about was in fact an undercover FBI operative, strategically placed in their midst to observe members of a violent criminal syndicate. His irregular schedule and guarded demeanor were not indicators of wrongdoing, but essential measures taken by someone endangering his own life to safeguard the public. Karen's relentless stalking and eventual burglary had risked exposing his identity, jeopardizing both the entire operation and his personal safety. Years of delicate intelligence gathering now teetered on the brink, because one woman refused to stay out of matters that did not concern her. The syndicate under scrutiny maintained informants throughout the region, and word of heavy FBI activity would travel fast. The agents labored through the night, evaluating the fallout and attempting to rescue whatever remained viable of the mission. My handler arrived shortly afterward, his face etched with grim frustration. Leadership opted to advance the timetable dramatically, executing arrests on key suspects before they could eliminate evidence or disappear. It was a far from optimal strategy, but Karen's interference had left them no alternative. Meanwhile, Karen remained in federal detention, her once flawless hair now unkempt, her crisp khakis creased and rumpled after prolonged hours in an interrogation room. The full weight of her predicament gradually settled over her as prosecutors methodically outlined the formal charges: felony breaking and entering, felony, theft of government property, obstruction of justice for endangering an active investigation, and evidence tampering for removing classified materials from a secure location. Her hurriedly summoned suburban attorney grew visibly paler as the prosecutors detailed mandatory sentencing guidelines. Each count alone warranted years in federal prison, and given the extensive harm inflicted, the government showed no interest in leniency. They possessed recordings of her prior harassment campaigns, documented instances of trespassing, and irrefutable high-definition video of the crimes themselves. The following day, the HOA board convened an emergency session and voted unanimously to strip Karen of her presidency. Her decades-long dominance over neighborhood affairs concluded quietly with a straightforward voice vote and no ceremony. Local media quickly latched onto the story, and soon Karen's image dominated television broadcasts under headlines about the HOA president who inadvertently burglarized the FBI. Her thriving real estate career built entirely on her image as a respected community leader collapsed almost overnight. Clients hastily terminated listings, unwilling to remain linked to someone facing serious federal charges. The country club rescinded her membership. Even the Garden Society, where she had long served as treasurer, courteously requested she relinquish all duties. As the federal proceedings advanced, additional revelations surfaced regarding the criminal network I had been targeting. They had exploited legitimate local businesses to launder proceeds from drug trafficking and illegal arms sales, bribed public officials, and intimidated anyone who probed too deeply. The operation I supported had been on the verge of securing sufficient proof for sweeping arrests and convictions capable of dismantling the whole enterprise. Karen's reckless conduct had come perilously close to derailing it all. Several targets gained precious hours to incinerate incriminating records before raids commenced. Others vanished from the region, necessitating costly nationwide pursuits. The once solid case now contained gaps that prosecutors would need to navigate, all traceable to one woman's conviction that she alone knew best. Plea discussions stretched across months. Karen's defense counsel pleaded for mercy, portraying her as a well-meaning but overly enthusiastic citizen simply striving to shield her neighbors. Prosecutors rebutted emphatically, highlighting the enormous disruption, squandered resources, and fugitives enabled by her meddling. Ultimately, Karen appeared before the judge for sentencing, devoid of her former bravado. The woman who once tormented residents over minor infractions like grass length or mailbox shades now answered for major federal felonies. The judge remarked on the stark irony of an individual so fixated on petty rules demonstrating utter contempt for actual laws. He imposed a sentence of 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Monetary penalties proved equally punishing, fines amounting to $250,000. Plus full restitution to offset expenses stemming from the compromised investigation. Karen's composure shattered as the judgment was pronounced. Her hands trembled uncontrollably while the prospect of spending the next 5 years incarcerated fully registered.